Hi, my name is Cynthia Susana Sanchez Rodriguez, and I am going to be talking about the Islamic art in Spain. The Islamic art is a set of artistic manifestations that occurred in the different religious areas of Islam. Within the regional focuses, we have to highlight Al-Andalus, the peninsula territory conquered by the Muslims in the year 711, which came to an end in the 1492 after the conquest of the Nasrid Kingdom of Granada by the Catholic monarchs. The presence of the Muslim in Spanish territory during the 8th centuries that extended between the 8th and the 15th affected to a greater extent what is now known as Andalusia, a term derived from the Arabic name Al-Andalus, which they received at the time the lands of Spain were under Muslim rule. Its main cities were the lavish Córdoba, capital del Califato, la espléndida Granada, sede de los reyes nazaríes, y la Sevilla de la Giralda y la Torre de Oro. However, the influence it exerted extended to practically the entire territory of what is now Spain, and also to all the areas of the society, from the language to the costumes, from the music to the arts or the thought. The horseshoe arch and the non-figurative decoration are two of its most relevant architectural and sculptural elements. And here we have the Giralda de Sevilla and the column detail of the general life palace of Granada. Now, there are two types of construction in Muslim architecture. One of religious typology whose most representative buildings is the mosque, and a civil typology there are citadels, castles, palaces, and the public baths. Here we have some general characteristics of Islamic architecture. The buildings will be of irregular and horizontal dimensions, that is to say, of one floor. The materials used for its constructions will be mainly brick, wood, and plaster. The closing system for these buildings will be the vaults and the domes, among which we can highlight the rear vaults, the Muqarna vaults, and the river domes. The pillars and columns will be the supporting elements, generally thin since the roof used to be very heavy. And here is a picture of the mihrab de la Mezquita de Córdoba. Then we will also see the use of arcs, the most notably used being the horseshoe arc, although we will also see the presence of a semicircular arcs, pointed arcs, and lobed or polylobed arcs. The exterior decoration is austere, however, inside it is quite the opposite, since we will see a varied and a rich ornamentation based on the tiles, the plasterwork, wood, and the marble to hide its poverty. In decoration, the theme can be of three types: vegetal, or also known as autarique, geometric motifs based on the last areas or stars, and epigraphic, which is what shapes the writing. Now we're going to talk about the 5 periods or stages in which Islamic art in Spain can be classified depending on the different reigns that existed. Number 1 is the Cordovan or Caliphate period. It receives many influence from Visigothic art, especially due to the use of horseshoe arcs, and Hispano-Roman art due to the way of placing the rope and bling the ring. It is also very characteristic to see in constructions the alternation of beziers, color and textures, the alfiz, which is a molding subordinate to the architecture, especially to the frame, the arcs, or the openings of windows or doors. Next is the period of the Taifa kingdoms. The art of these kingdoms were characterized by emulating the splendor that occurred in the previous stage, and by what has been called popular baroque, that is, an excessive research of the construction of ornamentation. The materials were characteristic by being a low cost, for example, the plasterwork. But despite performing their main function, which has to decorate, being a very poor material, just a very few buildings have been preserved. Now we have the Almoravid period. Its artistic manifestations were characterized by the use of mucarnas, a decorative element that is, let's say, a kind of stalactite that hangs from the arcs and the domes and is made of plaster, often polychrome. It is an art indebted to the Taifa kingdoms. However, there are hardly any remains and significant samples from this period, the best preserved being those found in North Africa. Next, we have the Almohad period. This civilization came to the peninsula and brought with it one of the most original elements that had not been seen until now. It is what is known as a sevka, a type of geometric decoration in the form of a network of overlapping rhombuses that mask the construction system. And now we have the period of the Nasrid Kingdom of Granada. Granada was characterized by being a very rich, independent, and powerful town. In its way, it will be reflected in the monument per excellence of this period, the Palatine complex of the Alhambra in Granada. It is a return to the sumptuous art that we saw at first and a reaction against the austerity of the Almohad period, which it does, however, take some elements. As far as the material are concerned, they will be poor but covered with plasterwork, marble, silk, clothes, and tiles. Now I am going to talk to you about the sculpture, decorative art, and painting of Islamic art. Unfortunately, there are very few sculptures and paintings referring to this period of Islamic art, although we do know that the Muslim decorative art were very varied, ranging from the ceramics to the carpets, fabrics, and goldsmithing. Here we have the vault of the room of the kings of the Alhambra, and next we have the bronze found from Medina Azahara. Here we have the Bote de Zamora. It is a cylindrical jar with a dome lid topped with an ivory knob. It has a conical lid that closes with a hinge and a silver clasp. The entire surface of the piece is covered with autaurique decoration, an Arabic plant type ornamentation of leaves and palmettes intersected with peacocks, gazelles, and other birds. The decoration is framed by a wreath with borders. The Muslim's presence is a peculiar ingredient that will add a genuine flavor to their culture. At the western end of its expansion in the land of Al-Andalus, Islam will reach its moment of greatest cultural splendor. Córdoba will be the most populous city in Europe in this time. The lavish of the court of the Andalusian Caliphate will become legendary through the Christian era. From language to art and literature, from agricultural techniques to crafts, tapestries, and textiles, the imprint of Islam will continue to this day. This is the Astrolabio de Granada. It is one of the 40 that are preserved in the world. The Muslims use this instrument to make an astronomical and astrological calculations. The astrolabe is a precision instrument that was used as an observatory and as an abacus for astronomical calculation, consisting of a circular plate. It presents a metal ring or stem in the manner of a frame, so that the surface in the interior space is lowered, on which the spider, a lattice of the arrows, moves, where small silver buttons indicate the positions of certain stars and heavenly bodies. And this will be everything. Thank you for your attention.